Your Excellency, the Ambassador of India to Bhutan, staff and students of Sherubtse College, good morning. At the very outset, I would like to express my deep appreciation to Your Excellency for finding time to engage with our staff and students on a very important discourse on India-Bhutan cooperation during COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. I'm aware that Your Excellency, in fact, had a plan to visit Sherubtse College earlier. Nevertheless, we are very happy that we are able to connect with Your Excellency through the virtual world today. I hope there will be a suitable time for Your Excellency to visit Sherubtse College in the future. India-Bhutan relation, without doubt, stands as a time-tested model relationship in the world. This is once again demonstrated recently through the shipment of 150,000 COVID-19 vaccines to Bhutan, the first country to receive the generous gift from India. As an academic, I feel that India-Bhutan relation has a big scope for academic discourse and research. And today we are very fortunate to have a distinguished and seasoned diplomat to enlighten the staff and students of Sherubtse College on the subject of cooperation between the two countries. Your Excellency, I would like to report that Sherubtse has a long history of association with Indian universities, driven by the unique relationship between the two countries. The significant one in Sherubtse's milestone is its affiliation to the University of Delhi when it first began its journey as a tertiary academic institute in 1983. Over 20 years or so, University of Delhi has supported towards the academic growth at Sherubtse College. I would also like to report that 18% of the faculty members currently at Sherubtse College are expatriates from India. I would like to now take this opportunity to briefly present the career profile of Her Excellency, the Ambassador of India to Bhutan. Her Excellency has a rich and illustrious career profile, but in the interest of time, I will highlight only the selected few. Her Excellency joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1987. She was the All India Women's Topper of the 1987 Civil Service Batch and the topper of the 1987 Foreign Service Batch. She began her diplomatic journey in 1989 in Paris, where she was the third secretary in the Indian Embassy to France and subsequently served as a second secretary. From 1991 to 1996, she worked as an undersecretary in the Ministry of External Affairs. From 1996 to 1999, she served in Mauritius as a first secretary and head of Chancery at the Indian High Commission in Port Louis. From June 1999 to March 2002, she served as a deputy secretary and later director in charge of Foreign Service personnel and cadre in the Ministry of External Affairs. From 2002 to 2005, she served as a counselor at India's permanent mission to United Nations in New York. From 2006 to 2009, she was India's Consul General in Cape Town, South Africa. Further, from 2011 to 2014, she was India's Chief of Protocol, the first and the only lady so far in the government to have held this position. In April 2014, she was appointed as the India's ambassador to UNESCO Paris, and in February 2019 as an ambassador of India to Bhutan. She formally assumed charge of this position upon presentation of her credentials to His Majesty the King of Bhutan on 17th May 2019. With this, Your Excellency, I would like to report to you that we have our final year students and our academic staff eagerly waiting to listen to your wisdom seated in the college auditorium. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Now, I'm sure since you've heard the Indian ambassador is coming to speak to you, you've prepared yourself for an extraordinarily boring speech. You've prepared yourself for a lot of dates and numbers and long words, which quite frankly, no one needs to use. But I promise in the next less than 10 minutes, I hope to escape the role of ambassador and immerse myself in a far more noble one, that of storyteller. You see, I've lived quite a bit of life, and I think I've realized that nothing moves people more than stories. Stories are the heart of humanity. Stories are what create an end. They are what move the nihilist. They are what inspires the artist. And humanity has had quite the plethora of stories. The French Revolution, the rise of AI, Rosa Parks, Einstein's theory of general relativity, women's suffrage, the birth of democracy, the birth of yoga. These are some of our stories as a species. So let's start. Does anyone have any favorites? Does anyone have a favorite story? Any story, no exception or limits. Anything. Well, I think I have a couple, honestly. But I wonder if any of you have stopped to think about the story of today. Because what's been happening for the past year and continues to pervade is something that will be in the history books for some time. How humanity battled the coronavirus pandemic. Isn't that quite the story? An unfinished one right now, of course, but I know we are all holding our breaths for the ending. And if you think I'm here to tell the tale of the horrors of the pandemic, I'm not. The news does a great job at that. I'm not here to dampen your hearts or your spirits because we all know how bad the past year has been. Instead, I'd like to tell a story of hope and persistence and teamwork and ultimately success. Ever since the pandemic became a pandemic, there has been one word on everyone's mind: vaccine. Let's find a cure to this. Let's get our lives back to what they were. Let's make and manufacture this vaccine. Let's save the world. And so today I want to tell the story of a group of scientists who were trying to save the world with a vaccine. In January 2020, the work began. In a lab with researchers in their long white coats, the hours of testing and developing began. The world went into a state of extreme focus with one goal: to make a successful vaccine. However, there was an issue. Historically, the fastest vaccine to be made had taken 5 years to be developed. 5 years was quickest. And so this time, scientists had to defy the realms of possibility. 5 years wasn't acceptable, and the world needed its armor now. It didn't matter what had happened in the past. We needed to break a record. 3 months later, trials began. 2 months later, countries around the world began to help. Some partnered and had their scientists work on the technology. Others pledged up to billions of dollars. For 4 months, trials continued. Brave citizens volunteered. Healthcare workers had up to 20-hour work days. The doses are administered. People are observed carefully. Everything seemed to be going great until one day, someone got sick. A volunteer gets ill because of the vaccine. It's been 9 months since the work began, but today, one person got very ill and trials are suspended. The news is made public. The world feels as if it has gone back to square one. Sometimes it takes just one person and one reaction to scrap months of progress and effort. But a month passes, the situation is assessed, the vaccine is retested, and once again, trials resume. 2 months later, and 12 months since the research began, the Serum Institute of India announces it has applied for emergency use authorization of a version of the vaccine. One day later, the first scientific paper on phase 3 clinical trials for the coronavirus vaccine is published. And less than a month later, the vaccine is authorized. India authorizes a version of this vaccine, Covishield, with the Serum Institute of India pledging to produce 2 billion doses in 2021. Now, I know I went fast, and so please do read in your own time for an understanding of this story in greater depth. Yet, what I come here for today is to marvel at what humankind can do sometimes. This vaccine I spoke of is one of 4 or 5 leading vaccines within the world. So I encourage you to read the other stories too. But this one is particularly inspiring for us Indians, given the Serum Institute's monumental role in its production. There is no place in the world which possesses such a manufacturing capability. And as a result, a multitude of countries have already been given doses of vaccine, and a multitude of lives are potentially being saved. This vaccine took 1 year. And so, yes, we broke the record, we forged the armor, and maybe, just maybe, we got a little bit closer to saving the world. I also find this story particularly heartwarming because this story isn't about one country stealing the glory and taking a victory lap. It's not about you versus me, it's about the collective. The collective us, who all face the pandemic in a variety of ways, and how we all walk into a new world. This story is also about loyalty and friendship. In announcing the rollout within India on 16 January 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India had promised that the Made in India vaccine would serve humanity. And he kept to that promise, as vaccines were dispatched among India's neighbors and friends within days of the national rollout. Needless to say, Bhutan was a top priority for immediately being given doses of the vaccine. But you know, I hear a lot of people say that once the world is vaccinated, we'll go back to normal. But I think I disagree. There is no going back to normal. That would be foolish and irresponsible. That would be a complete waste. Because in my experience, practically everything in our lives are out of control. A pandemic could start, your car might break down, you might fail that test you studied really hard for. The point is, chaos and entropy are an intrinsic and fundamental part of existing in this universe. You can't outrun the laws of physics. And so, that leaves us with the only thing in our control: our reactions to the world around us, what we learn and how we act. And so I hope we never go back to normal. I hope we emerge as greater individuals with more strength and deeper empathy. I hope the meager days of normal never come back, never come close to what lies on the other side. I hope we care more and love deeper and cherish the beauties of life, knowing all well that they are not guaranteed. I hope we take a million pictures of the morning sunlight streaming through our windows and never let go of hugging our friends when this is all over. I hope we act with nothing but gratitude. So here's to an unfinished story, and here's to hoping for nothing but the very best. Thank you.
Laso Kuzambula, a warm greeting from Sherubtse, the peak of learning. I, on behalf of Sherubtse family and my own behalf, respected Your Excellency, distinguished guests, and at large the people of India for providing us such a platform, and would like to talk something about the relationship between two countries. Before that, to introduce myself, my name is Avichandra, a student president at Sherubtse College. I, on behalf of Sherubtse family and at large the people of Bhutan, would like to thank Your Excellency for a wonderful talk. And today, this significant moment would take us to the greater height. And this significant moment in the chronicle history of Bhutan and India would like to thank Your Excellency for a wonderful talk. And your words and word of wisdom was more than fearful and so precious. The bilateral relationship between the Himalayan Kingdom of Bhutan and the Republic of India that has been traditionally close, and it is that shared a common relationship between India and Bhutan, and not to forget Bhutan being a protected state of India, not a polytrade state of India. And Bhutan and India relationship treaty that reflects not only about the relationship that is politically, but it reflects way beyond that is a good relationship, a cemented relationship that built a way back. And the Golden Jubilee that has been celebrated in 2018. With this short statement, once again, I would like to thank Your Excellency and also a due respect to the entire guest, the dignitaries and experts from India, and not to forget at large to the people of India for supporting Bhutan, and would like to thank the people of Bhutan as well as India for constantly working to build this good cemented relationship between both the nation, and relationship not only in terms of political affairs but way beyond, not only during the pandemic but beyond the pandemic. And I, on behalf of my king, my country and people, would like to thank the government of India for giving us the COVID vaccine, and we are very fortunate and blessed to receive the first COVID vaccine in the world from the government of India. Thank you, and Tashdalil.